Hi everyone, it's great to have everyone on this webinar. I was just going to give an overview of kind of where this webinar came from, and then I'll swiftly hand over to the digital team. So essentially, we sent a survey out to the local Age UK network to ask kind of what the technology and digital needs are ranging from hardware to
is now exiting.
I don't know, needing Wi-Fi routers, etc., etc. And thanks to all of you, we had a really good response to that. To be honest, most Age UKs did fill that out, so thank you if you were one of those who did fill it out. If you do have any questions or didn't see that survey at all, please speak to someone within your Age UK, or if you still don't know what I'm talking about, please get in touch and I can share the survey with you. We've used that information, so there's been requests for laptops, tablets and things like that. That's all been handed over to the fundraising team, and they're working their socks off to try and get some ins at different technology companies, etc. And as soon as we can hopefully secure some equipment, there'll be more communications going out. So it's a kind of work in progress at the moment, but obviously all our fingers are crossed, and it's really great to have that information for now, but also for the future. It's really good learning for us to try and support the network as best we can. And one kind of side request for support, as well as the hardware that I've spoken about, is supporting how to do social media, maybe update your websites, how to make content engaging. So that's not my area of expertise at all. I usually help run our restricted funding programs. So kindly, I've spoken with the digital team and they've all kindly agreed to kind of share their expertise and give a few hints and tips of the kind of content that's already been created and kind of guidance that they hopefully can share. So thank you very much to the digital team again, and I hope you will find it useful. If you have questions as you go through, I'm sure each speaker will have their own preference, but quite usually if you type your questions in the chat box, it's the most easiest way to try and answer them rather than turning on your mic, because we've got a lot of people on this call. So if you could type it in the chat box, that would be fantastic. So that's it from me. So I'll be handing over to Christopher now, who works in the digital team, who's going to start the session. So thank you.
Okay, hello. I hope you can hear me. If you can't, well, you won't be able to hear me, but hopefully you can. I'm going to share my screen with you now, and I'm going to give you a quick run through of the basics for just for this specific webinar, which is about the services tab that you can put on your websites if you filled it in. So I'll be talking for the digital team, and then some of the other teams from brand and from digital marketing and from the other teams out there. They'll kind of give you their bits, but we all kind of form a whole for whatever we're kind of talking about. So you should be able to see on my screen the Partner Digital Hub, which we'll share with you afterwards, and if you contact me generally, you will have access to this. And this kind of has all the guidance for the CMS and the guides for how to use it. So if someone's new or they need to pick up on something else, and they can find out the instructions here, or I can run individual sessions with them. For the thing that I'm going to be talking about today is, as I say, about the services, but for any of the other subject areas that the guys are going to talk about, you can also find guidance underneath here. So if you wanted to say, if we're talking about Google Grants, you would just type in here Google, and then it would kind of give you some guidance about that. So anything that the guys talk about is supplemented here. The thing I'm going to talk about today is about the coronavirus content pack that we put out for you. So there's some guidance on the sites. There's web content and the coronavirus services table. The web content is just stuff that we've created for basic page text for your home pages or for your services pages. So if I show you an example here, so this would be your home page. We've kind of done you a quick homepage promo that you can use, and then if you go through to where the coronavirus news page is, we put examples of these in your websites. You don't have to use them, they're not tied to it, but if you're a bit tied for things that you want to say, you can go in and you can find them in the CMS. And if you don't use the CMS, then obviously speak to someone that does, or if you need access, come to me. They are all stored in the global folders on the CMS, in underneath campaigns and underneath coronavirus. And as you can see, they will they'll be stored here. This is all the content. The thing I'm going to talk about today is an example of it is here on Lincoln and South Lincolnshire, is this services tab. So you've all have been receiving surveys for INA and for services, which somebody in your organisation will have filled out. The INA is to tell the call centre in Ashburton what's going on in terms of whether you are supplying services, whether you are supplying INA, but if you are supplying services, some of them might be running, some of them might not be running. So when you've updated the Survey Monkey, then this data goes through to Ashburton, and Ashburton use it to answer calls as they come through. As a byproduct of this, we found that we can also embed it on your sites if you want it. So this is the way that you can embed it on your site. So this is what Lincoln has done. It's a bit small, so that you can put it on your homepage, and also I think and also Age UK, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, they've also done it as well, so they've got theirs on there. So you can do the same thing. If things are out of date, then you just go back to whoever filled out the form and they update it, and it kind of gets scrolled through. So a quick way of how to show you to do that is it's stored here in your global folders. What you would need to do is just go to the table, the services table in the global, copy it. Go to then your own folders, and if you have campaign, you'd have one for coronavirus, and then you would then paste the block in there, as I've done here, and then you'd edit it. Let's get that right. Yeah, so then you go in to edit it. You'd email myself for the code. I'll supply you with the code. And you literally just there, save it, and therefore your code will come through. Publish it, and then you would go to your home page. And there's already an example of it there because I was trying another one. But you just drag it through, and therefore it would live on your home page. Just publish it, and then you've got your updates coming through to your site. So all the guidance for that, which I know I've just whizzed through it very quickly. So if you go to the local partner digital hub, go onto campaigns, click on coronavirus content tab, and if you scroll down, it will just tell you who you have to contact, and then I can lead you through the process, but all the guidance for it is here. That's me finished very quickly, so you can ask some questions about that later on if you want to, or just pop it in the chat window, or you can email directly at partner.content. Okay.
Thank you, Christopher. I think next we had Tom and Tilda from social media. You can either share your screen, Tom and Tilda, or you can just talk and I can put the slide back up, whichever you prefer.
Cool. Hi, everyone. We've already had like a couple of questions come through that I'm kind of happy to answer now, and Tom can pitch in as and when as well. We got a question come through about increasing engagement without doing paid advertising, and there's just a few things that I was just going to run through now. If you do have any other questions, feel free to just drop it in the chat, and that's fine, and we can pick up on that. So in terms of increasing engagement, it's good to think logically about when your audience are most likely to be online. So maybe looking at your more successful posts that you've had and looking at what sort of time that was, like whether it was a lunchtime or first thing in the morning, and maybe just, you know, from just looking at the posts that have done successfully before, just start posting at those particular times. Also just make full use of the trending hashtags. So there's a website that I've used. I'm not sure if, Tom, you've got a better one that you use, but mine's called just Social Media Holiday Calendar, where you can look at all of the upcoming hashtags that may or may not be trending, and then also just looking first thing in the morning at all of the trending hashtags and just making sure you're jumping on the bandwagon with that, really. Let me just send over the link that I've got. And that just has all of the UK holidays that are coming up. So we've got Father's Day coming up, etc. So just making sure that you're always using trending hashtags. So for example, this morning I noticed it was International Nurses Day, and obviously that was quite a popular one. So we shared a post about that, and it got about 60 likes or something. So that was quite a good one to pick up on, especially over this time. Other things that you can do is engage with other local Age UKs and companies that you have a connection with, and make sure that you're always tagging them correctly in your content. This way they're more likely to retweet and share your post to their audience as well, and it's just broadening that audience that are able to see them. As well as, sorry, I'm just seeing the messages that are coming through at the same time. Remember to reply to your tweets too. So if people are replying to your engagement, replying to your posts, then just engaging with them as well, and just kind of building up that relationship with your followers. Make sure that your tweets are attractive is a really, really important thing. So just picking high quality photographs and infographics, and as well, and this is just a really, really obvious one, but just making sure that your text is spelt correctly and that grammar is correct, as people are less likely to retweet and engage with your content if spelling is wrong and grammar's wrong. And don't just try and make the copy attractive as well. Like, don't overwhelm your copy with 10 hashtags at the end of it and things like that. Just think logically about kind of separating it out and just making it look as pretty as possible. Maybe even kind of opening your copy with something a bit intriguing, like an opening question or an opening line, being like, for example, maybe over this period you might say, are you feeling lonely during lockdown, for example, and then going on to how you can help in that circumstance, just kind of drawing people into your posts. Try and always have something visual. I hope I'm not talking too fast, by the way. Please let me know if I need to slow down. Try and always have something visual on your post as well. So whether that be a photo, a GIF, or a video. Just looking at our chat. Cool. So yeah, make sure that you've always got something visual. I think sometimes it's okay to have a text post, a purely text post that we've done recently that did well was just a list of numbers that people can call during this time, and it just didn't need a creative, but we had lots of emojis in there. But I mean, apart from that, I think all of our posts tend to have a photo, a GIF, or a video, or an infographic. So I think that's really, really important. As well as this, you can retweet and quote retweet other people's content, which will increase engagement just because, again, you're interacting with other brands, other people, and that just kind of builds up your audience too. In going back to making your copy look prettier, make sure that you can use bit.ly to shorten your links, so it's not just like a hefty, overwhelming link in your copy. And that's kind of it, I think, in terms of increasing engagement. Have you got anything to add, Tom?
No, that was really great. A few things from me would be, obviously, if there's anything that you ever really want to get out there and increase awareness of, please do share it with us. We're always more than happy to feature as much local partner content as possible on our channels.
Yeah, definitely.
And then looking at the chat, there was a question there from Beverly around, is it better to post a YouTube link to Facebook or upload a video from a file? It's always better to upload the video to the platform rather than link out to YouTube. So I would definitely say put the video on Facebook natively, and then that means you can have all the engagement on the video on platform, plus you're only really meant to have one link in the post. And this way it means the link in your post can be to your website, where people can find out more information and potentially take more actions there.
Yeah, perfect. I agree.
Thanks, Tilda. It's good to know we're in agreement.
We're
in agreement.
We also got another question just before this. I'll get back to about the CTAs in a second. About variety in posts and just making sure that all your posts are different. And just a few suggestions, really. Again, just going back to the hashtags. If you're kind of talking about different subjects and things that are trending, then it kind of forces you to talk differently in each of your posts. So just try not to do a straight copy and paste job and posting out the same 4 things every week. And trying to just think a bit more creatively about this. You can always use emoji. This is really silly, but you can use emojis just more creatively, maybe use bullet points and things like that. So just formatting your tweets a little bit differently each time. But in terms of having variety in posts, it's always still good to keep the same tone of voice across all. So it's not necessarily a bad thing if you're sounding like the same person in every single tweet. That's a good thing. And yeah, post a variety of creatives again. So post a variety of video, photographs, infographics, GIFs, etc. I'm just going to have a look at the chat now. Any tips of creating effective fundraising CTAs? Our followers engage with posts, but this isn't. Any thoughts, Tom? I suppose
So with
just
Samantha's question, that's much more about if they're engaging with your post, that's great. But what you really want to do with your post is get people driven to your site where they'll take actions like fundraising for you. So the call to action really needs to be on the post. Click here, go to our site to find out more information, and really get people driving through to the site where you can make the much harder, stronger sell of people fundraising for you and taking more stronger actions rather than just liking a post. That's what we tend to do, is try and get as many people as possible through to the site rather than just engaging on platform.
Yeah, definitely.
Where they can look at all of Anna's wonderful work she's done on the website. There's a question from Caroline about using Bitly. Matt, do you want to talk a bit about why we use Bitly and why people shouldn't be apprehensive to click on those links?
Yeah, sure. So Bitly, I can completely understand why some people might be nervous, particularly in this age of increased scammers and things like that. But Bitly is kind of the market leader in link shortening. Now, the reason that we recommend that they are used is so that you can basically add tracking to URLs that point towards your websites. So your UTM tracking that you can use via Google Analytics. And it just makes your link much shorter, much more attractive. And if you have a pro Bitly account, you can actually personalize those. So you could have like bit.ly/COVID19 if you wanted, if that wasn't already taken. So it's just a way of shortening your links for use throughout other platforms. So Tom, on Twitter, does Twitter have the same functionality there with the t.co links?
I think so, yeah. I'm fairly sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so anything
I'll double check.
Yeah, anything that you can just make your links look a little bit more appealing and attractive. Obviously, if you're using different on different platforms, for example, Facebook, if you're linking to a post to your website directly through a page post, you won't need to worry about shortening that link because Facebook will add it in unit for you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions at all that anyone's got about social media and increasing engagement, or about organic social media?
There's a couple more just come through now, Tilda, just a second.
Beverly, what's the best management site for all? Well, we use Sprout Social, which we've used now for 5 years, which we really like. It's got a really nice queuing system, a really great smart inbox where all the messages from all platforms go into one. So Tilda checks that basically, 24/7, she's on that really. And it also does our reporting for us as well. So Sprout Social is what we use. Quite a few now, particularly Facebook and Twitter, have really their own sort of management, particularly Facebook with the Creator Studio to try and keep it in-house. Hootsuite, I have never really liked Hootsuite. That's just a personal preference, but I know Tilda's used it in previous jobs, I think.
Yeah, but again, Hootsuite I just found doesn't work very well for all assets, so I've just always rather have stuck organically as well with using the Creative Studio on Facebook and Twitter's new scheduling software, etc. But I know that Buffer's pretty good as well, and maybe slightly cheaper than Sprout if that's of interest as well.
We had a question from Diana about Facebook donations. So Facebook pays out donations twice a month, on the 15th and the 31st. We've seen a slight delay recently, I think because of the current situation. They've got less people working, so it's taken a little bit longer for that money to come through. But we normally see payouts twice a month, on the 15th and on the 31st. You will be able to, in the back end of Facebook, in the settings and then the donations tab, you'll be able to go in at any point and have a look at the daily transactions you've had for the previous days. So if you want to sort of try and keep as close to possible real tab on what you're getting per day, you can go in there and see that. But you should be getting the money, twice a month, on the 15th and 31st.
One's coming in from. Oh, sorry, Matt.
Sorry, Tilda, Tom. I don't know if you've seen Samantha's question there about increasing followers.
Yes. So in terms of increasing followers, I would just put that hand in hand with engagement and just making sure, again, that you're following people that might be interested in following you back, doing engaging content by using trending hashtags and making sure that your content is pretty enough to be retweetable, and just and not buying followers ever is my advice as well.
Good advice. I would just say, beyond that, it's involving yourselves in conversations that are going on Twitter. Twitter's not really there to be used as sort of a mouthpiece where you just blurt stuff out. It's about being involved in conversations that are happening around topics that you're interested in. So I would definitely search hashtags, have a look for conversations in your area that people and businesses are having around topics that concern you as an Age UK, and start getting involved in them. Start saying, what you're doing to help people in certain situations, and just increasing the awareness of you as a charity and what you're doing in a local area. It does take time, because you do have to take time seeking out these conversations and getting involved in them. But coming from a place that you are as a charity, as a trusted source of information, what people will say, they will believe and they'll act upon and engage with it. So definitely just try and get involved in conversations that are around topics that you can help in.
That's great. We've got another one in from Danny, just asking if Sprout Social is free. It's not, it's a paid for service, but there definitely are free options that you can use. So you're using Lightful at the moment, which I've actually never personally used. I know that Hootsuite have a free service, but you can only post a maximum of, you're only allowed to schedule a maximum of 30 posts in one go. So you wouldn't be able to schedule any further than that. And I'm sure there's other limitations to it too, with maybe reporting and things. There's also a service called Later, which you can schedule Instagram on, as well as Twitter and Facebook, but not LinkedIn. And you get a free service with that. Again, there's a limited amount of posts that you can actually schedule in one go. So there are free options out there, but we've just always found that the paid for options are worth it if you're wanting to kind of do social properly. But these free versions, I mean, at previous jobs when we've been on a tighter, when we've been using cheaper services, it's worked fine. So yeah, feel free to email me separately if you wanted the list. That's fine. Caroline, do you have any tips on creative writing for social media posts? So just looking back at my notes, it is mainly just about using different, so if you're just talking about different things, then just trying to just change
I would say with the sounding the same on a lot of posts, I wouldn't necessarily worry too much about that. As long as, you know, we use repeat content quite a few times, we just make sure that we post it at different times, because people access those social channels at different times of day and at different periods during the week. So we might put out something on a Monday morning, and then the same time we might put it out on a Saturday afternoon, and the people accessing social at those times will be different, even though the content's the same. So I would never worry too much that you're putting out the same stuff. In terms of being creative with the topics that you're talking about, what we found has worked really well is looking at the same topic from different points of view. So we've done it from our point of view, we've done it from a service point of view, we've done it from a service user's family point of view, just trying to get in as many different people's sort of take on the situation and how they might be feeling, to try and speak to as many of our followers as possible. So not just our beneficiaries, but also maybe the families of the beneficiaries or any potential funders that might well be looking at our content for sure. Beth, any tips on how to engage colleagues on producing social content for social media? Yeah, the best way we found out about doing that is to initially produce some content ourselves around their topic, put it out, show how well it's done and how many people we've driven through to those pages on the site, and then gone to them and go and look, as a little test, we put out this image and we linked to the page on the site about your area of the charity. It performed really well. We think there's scope to do more here. We'd love to work with you in terms of getting more about this topic out there, and then sort of get them engaged from a point of view of we can really help on social, raise awareness of your side of the charity and what you're doing. That's when normally I would do that. I would then bring in Anna and Bex to help with design and Anna to help with making sure their webpage looks as snazzy as possible. And then Barbara finally would come in to look at the analytics of how that's all performed. Matt, I think you're all good.
Oh, we've also got one from Samantha just asking, would you consider Twitter more suited to B2B or B2C? Well, I mean, for us, it's B2C more than B2B. Occasionally we'll do some corporate tweets, which are more B2B, but yeah, I don't know if you've got any more thoughts on that, Tom. But
yeah, I think from a local partner point of view, B2B is really important on Twitter, particular because there'll be quite a lot of local businesses that have Twitter accounts that you should be following and engaging with, and sort of building up an understanding of helping them to build up an understanding of what you do. So if they ever come to charity partners or they want to make a donation, you're forefront of their mind when it comes to them making that decision. I think in particular you're in a much better position than myself to know the local businesses and companies in your area that you work with or that you want to work with. So definitely start following them, start engaging with their content, just saying, we're here, this is what we're doing, we'd love to work with you. So there's definitely scope with your local Twitter accounts to get that going, and do some B2B. And also with B2C, particularly on Twitter, we found it more with families rather than beneficiaries, because the sort of user age of people on Twitter is slightly lower than our beneficiary age. Yeah, we found it much more easier talking to family members of beneficiaries who may need our help and getting in that way. Matthew.
Hello.
Yeah, over to you, Matt.
Cool. So I'd be interested to understand how a lot of you are currently contacting your existing supporters or even beneficiaries during this period. So for us, we are continuing with our email programs. So we are still contacting our warm supporters and beneficiaries through that channel. We have kind of taken a slight step back in some of our business as usual activities. So, for example, our lottery team are currently putting a pause on their activity. So we're kind of building up more of our appeal focused work. So I'm working very closely with Anna, our content manager, to send out fortnightly updates of our main fundraising appeal. So this is to keep people that donated to the campaign warm and updated on how we are progressing with the appeal and how some of those funds are being spent, but then also trying to explore other areas of data that we've got access to. Some people that might not have been contacted in quite some time, but we still have the right consent levels for, to inform them about the appeal with a very kind of soft donation ask in there. Now, if you've got any questions at all, because I do have a tendency to waffle, we just pop them in the chat there, and I will answer. So we are upping our email frequencies. So we are sending appeal updates twice a week there. And this kind of goes really in combination with all of our activities. So Tom and Tilda are very much focused on social, but how we're approaching all of our work across the whole spectrum. So not just thinking about our digital environments, but also our print environments, which Rebecca King, who's on this call, also works on. We're thinking about how we can work very quickly but tie everything together so we've got consistent messaging going out through all of our channels that we have at our disposal. So this also accounts for other digital marketing channels such as the Google Grant, which I know that a number of you do currently have access to. Now, what we found when this pandemic really took hold was that we were unable to add any kind of coronavirus or COVID-19 related terms into our Google Grant. And this was basically because Google themselves put the brakes on that, because there was a real risk of the spread of misinformation. And I think Facebook have done a great job at kind of vetting adverts in the paid space there as well, just to make sure that the public are getting the right, accurate information at all times. Now, some of those restrictions have been lifted, and Age UK, for our primary account at least, can now explore using those kind of keywords within our Google Grant account. So that's kind of helping to drive a bit more traffic to our site. It's primarily at the moment driving to our information and advice, which Anna in our content team kind of manages that on the website with her team. So we're not currently using it to drive people to our fundraising appeal, because we think it's very important at this time that people get the right information, and particularly the information that they're worried about and concerned about. But we are going to be exploring fundraising in this space as well. And I've just seen a question come through from Diana. Google Grant it's okay for fundraising. You should definitely have a fundraising ad group set up within your Google Grant, particularly when you're thinking about your local brand terms. we do see that rather than kind of the more generic terms of charity and donate, we see that we get more donations coming in through Age UK plus donate, for example. So those leads are already warm to us. So there is that argument that perhaps we're paying for a donation that we might have got anyway. However, it is good practice. Interestingly, at this time, because we only operate through our Google grant, we don't invest in proper paid search at the moment because we don't have the budget. What we are seeing is some of our peers within the sector cheekily bidding on our core brand donate terms. So we might see, we've seen a lot of Action Aid at the moment bidding on Age UK plus donate, Save the Children as well, which I thought was a real odd one. You know, particularly because the clue's in the title there of their charity. So I'm not sure why somebody who's looking to donate to an older person's charity would then donate to Save the Children. So we're seeing that that kind of competitiveness come at the moment because, of course, you know, everyone is under that pressure. So I would definitely, if you've got your Google grant, definitely have some fundraising ad groups set up in there and test and learn against any fundraising that you're doing, particularly in your local area. So Danny has asked, we've never used Google Grant before. Do you have a link or suggested place that I could do some online training at all? Yep. So Christopher, do you happen to have the link to the Google Grant guides that are in the hub, the Brand Partner Hub?
I do, and I will put it in the chat window.
Thanks very much. Yeah, so Danny, that's coming through to you. There's also lots of resources with it. So the one that Christopher's going to share is specific to the Google grant. However, the kind of the foundations of how the grant account works is exactly the same as a paid for account. So Google have lots of training resources directly on their websites. There are some limitations with the grant, which, thanks, Christopher. There are some limitations with the grant that you need to be mindful of or aware of. You need to maintain a click-through rate across all your ad groups of 5% or more. Otherwise, you can risk suspension. Because you should be quite specific with your area, that shouldn't be too difficult. And also, there's an upper limit on the cost per click. So you sorry, not cost per click, on the bid value for each of your keywords. You can't bid more than $2 for all keywords, which just means that more competitive terms that might cost a little bit more are out of our reach via the grant. But most, like I say, most of yours, if you're going for your brand plus your locality, should fall under that $2 limit anyway. It's a really great resource. It's free advertising spend. There is the resource to manage it, which is the kind of negative. But if you can do the heavy lifting, get this set up, then it takes you know, probably half a day, maybe a week, just to take a look and make sure that everything's ticking along nicely. So the subsequent management of it kind of lessens once everything's set up. No worries. I definitely feel like I've been waffling. So if there's no other questions, I can hand over to Anna or Bex.
Yeah, do you want me to go? Perfect.
Go for it, Bex.
So as Matt and Tom and Tilda have all said, I look after the brand. So we're all working together at the moment, obviously on the current crisis, and trying to get everything out there in a very consistent way, which is sometimes quite hard because we're in a reactionary time. But I would say there are some, you know, do's and don'ts around the brand, and, you know, use it to strengthen your message. So I'd say that, you know, if you look on any kind of social media, there's loads of fluff out there. So what we should do is, you know, as a partnership, so we have this really strong brand, use that to strengthen your message and be able to promote your activities. People are more likely to trust the charity they've heard of. So actually, by using your name, that would give those people that strength of mind that they know who they're dealing with. But also you need to keep the messages quite straightforward, I'd say, which is, you know, just going back to what Tom and Tilda were saying, you know, don't overcomplicate it. Don't overcomplicate the visuals either. Our brand especially works best when you keep it simple and bold, and people are more likely to connect with you and contact you, and maybe even then be able to donate to you later on. And be consistent. So our Age UK logos are all consistent across the brand. Font size being, you know, just keep the font sizes the same if you can, just to make sure that they're accessible, especially because older people might be looking at your materials, and that's more print wise than obviously than digital. But colour palette, we've got a massive colour palette. Use it to be bold and impactful, even if it's just a block of colour with some text on it, but a block of our colour from our colour palette. I think that's a really good way to go to keep it simple, and everyone can do that. But also about those authentic photos and visuals. So, you know, you were talking earlier, asking about how to get staff interested in social media posts and things like that. It'd be great to get those lovely images of people going out and delivering, doing those vital services that older people need. If you can get some of those images from your staff and volunteers, that would be incredible. And I think that's what's really lovely about this time, is people aren't bothered about whether they look beautiful. It's about that impact, and about the impact that you're having on the ground that makes it authentic. And therefore the people that are going to be looking at that are going to be more likely to donate to your cause. And I'd say at the moment there's no need to get a professional photographer. As I said, I think that's what's really lovely about people taking pictures while they're out and about, just to show the breadth of what they're doing. Obviously, we've got the brand hub there to take for images should you need them. They are stock images, because we can't obviously share images of real people. So I wouldn't use those as a first port of call. If you have something of your own that's authentic, I think that would be great, but you obviously need permission from the people that are in that photograph, the older people, especially the service users. Just make sure that they're happy with that. We obviously have to ensure that at every turn with our work as well, just to make sure that everyone's happy. So Brand Hub is there, but I wouldn't use stock photography in the first port of call, especially around this work. That's more for kind of your business as usual kind of stuff. But I think that's what I would say, just think about that simplicity, using the brand to its advantage. It's really strong and actually should get you lots of traction on social too. So I'm looking in the chat. I don't think there's anything. There's one thing about legacy actually from Emma and Wandsworth. So we've obviously ceased our legacy messaging at the moment. That's been a decision made just because of the current crisis, and actually just because it's going to affect a lot of older people. I can't give you an update on that, or whether there's any movement in that coming. We've not been told. And actually all of our legacy activity that's been planned in for the next few months has now been taken over by our COVID-19 fundraising. So I don't know when that will be coming back. So I said that's at the moment. It's pretty tricky times for legacy, I would say. But you know, if you've got any questions, we can obviously ask the legacy team specifically and try and give feedback on that, and maybe some of their best practice and their tips on that. Christopher's shared the Brand Hub login page as well. If you do have if you're not a member of Brand Hub, then please send an email to brand services. So that's brand.services. It's on the card, but I will pop it in the chat as well. And you can always send us a message and we'll get you hooked up straight away. All we need is your email address, so we can send them to you, and you can use it's a self-login. So that's fine. So if there's no more questions, I can hand over to Anna just to finish off. We've got about 10 minutes left, I think.
Lovely, thanks Bex. Hello everyone, my name's Anna. I'm the Senior Content Manager at Age UK. So I look after our content team, which includes all the content you see on the Age UK website, and then our more general copywriting and editing. So within my team, we look after the information and advice guides, other print materials, and then, as Matt was saying earlier, we help out with things like email newsletters and any other kind of communications across the organisation. So since March, we've basically been flat out on coronavirus content, as I'm sure lots of you are too. And I wanted to be really honest and say it's been really, really tough for us to produce content because everything is moving so quickly. We're really lucky at Age UK that we have a team of health experts who are pretty much hourly, daily reviewing what the government is saying about what we should be doing around coronavirus and what the latest advice is. What they do is then tell us in the content team, this is what the government is saying, and we work together to make it as simple and easy to understand as we can for the public. So you may have already seen on the Age UK website, we've created what we're calling the Coronavirus Hub. So this is a new section under information and advice, and it's bringing together all the content we've been creating around coronavirus, and we've grouped it in 3 sections. So there's information around the disease itself and the virus itself and its effects. There's tips and suggestions on how to stay healthy while you're either in lockdown, or if you're shielding because you're very vulnerable, we've got pages on that as well. And then we've also created content for people who are interested in finding out how they can help others during this time, which is thankfully a lot of people. We're very lucky to have a lot of people who really care about all the people in this country. So one thing I wanted to say was, if you wanted to link to that hub, you are more than welcome to. We do our best to update it very regularly. So like this week, when the government changes things, we work as quickly as we possibly can to reflect that on the site. We put up a disclaimer, which is another thing you could consider if you are putting up any kind of information around health and the health advice the government is giving. If you're having to update it and you're aware it's currently out of date, what we do is add a little disclaimer at the top of pages saying this content is being updated. In the meantime, either head to gov.uk or to the NHS, just to make sure that we're not giving people outdated information, which is probably one of the biggest risks at the moment, is not moving quick enough with our content. So as I say, please do feel free to link to the Coronavirus Hub. You'll find on there as well that we actually link off to the NHS and gov.uk ourselves, and that's because quite often we just don't know what the right answer is, and if it moves around a lot, we want to make sure that people go straight to the source, basically the government. One thing on content around coronavirus, which I'm sure you're all more than aware of, is the need to be as simple as possible. I mean, 2 months ago, none of us probably had ever said the word social distancing in our lives, and now we're saying it, 50 times a day. Things are becoming part of our kind of common language, but we do also need to remember that not everybody understands these terms in the same way. So when we can, trying to clarify exactly what we mean. So if we say, oh, practice social distancing, what do we actually mean? We're saying, try to maintain a distance of 2 meters from other people. And I saw one the other day actually on the government's website that made me laugh, which was saying, oh, you must practice exceptional respiratory hygiene. I was thinking, well, what they're saying there is, don't cough on people. There's a lot to be said for just trying to be as clear and concise with people as possible. It's not dumbing down. If you're worried that it sounds too simple, I would say then it's perfect. The average reading age in the UK is actually only 9 years old. So writing for people in a way that is simple, clear, uses short words and short sentences, that's never a bad thing. That's my main tip at the moment, is to write really as clear as you can. Even if it means you're saying the same thing a few times over, that is fine. I also just wanted to mention fundraising content. I'm sure lots of you are putting out information about ways people can support you. We're doing a lot of that at Age UK as well. Matt and Tom both mentioned earlier that we've created what we're calling our Appeal Hub, which is a section on the site showing exactly how we're using donations, where they're going, and it includes things like stats of how many befriending calls we've taken, and advice line calls, and then also all the lovely stuff that the network's doing and all the amazing work delivering food parcels and help from home. And one thing we've been finding with our fundraising content is it's so important to answer the question of what are you doing with my money? It sounds so obvious, but so often we can go, oh, you know, by donating £10, you can really make a difference to an older person. It's like, well, show me the difference. What is that difference? And that's where Bex's comment around going out and getting people's stories. You know, if you're taking deliveries to someone's doorstep, ask if they wouldn't mind having their photo taken, ask what it means to them, and sharing these stories is better than anything we could write about how we're making a difference to people's lives. It's just wonderful to get people to say it themselves. It really is kind of dynamite content. And that's kind of the main things from me. I'd be really happy to answer any questions that anyone's got. Oh, hello, Catherine. Catherine says, hi, this has been helpful to gain insight into marketing. It'd be great to have a host. Yes, the fundraising team. Yeah, we will mention that to them. I'm sure they've got lots of tips and stuff to share as well. Any more for any more?
Any advice on balancing the message between older people in risk group and ageism, widespread views of older people now as vulnerable counter some of the work we have done, challenging stereotypes? Don't know who's best.
Well,
that's
one. Great question, actually.
Yeah.
Vex, I think this is relevant to all of us, actually. So obviously, we've kind of moved away from the kind of love later life messaging recently, in a kind of a very subtle way. Bex, I don't know if this is a good point to talk about imagery and portrayals of aging and things like that.
Yeah, I think you have to be really careful, especially now. I mean, I suppose a lot of our focus at the moment is on frailer people, people that are not in great places. And I suppose with the work that we've done with the charity, oh God, what the new charity strategy, sorry, I lost my words. You know, we are going to be focusing on the people most in need, and they might not always be the most vulnerable and frail looking people, but at the moment, that is the kind of the direction we're going in, just to get as much traction as we can with people. You know, there's lots of charities asking for money right now, and sadly, the coronavirus speaks to a lot of the things that we talk about all the time with older people. You know, the isolation, loneliness, that kind of thing. So it's kind of playing into our hands slightly at the moment, but it is a really tricky balance, actually, especially when what we are trying to do is show that people, you know, older people are valued and wanted in society, needed in society. It's a really tricky one, and I'd say that's something we probably need to look at after this has kind of gone up. Well, not that it will ever go away, but you know, once this has all subsided slightly, it's probably something we need to think about. Moreover, when we look at our social media channels and website and think, and what kind of images we're putting out there and messages we're putting out there. So I suppose that's not really an answer, but we are aware of it.
Yeah, I think just to add to that as well, it feels very, very different to the scenario we found ourselves a few years ago after the Brexit vote. You know, there is obviously a lot more care and warmth for older people at the moment. You know, so we're in kind of a slightly different situation, and it's just how we navigate that, like Beck said, with kind of sensitivity. Yeah, so I think it's a ongoing discussion and an ongoing question that we don't quite have the answer for yet about getting that balance right.
Great, thank you everyone. We'll leave it there. So thanks for everyone for your questions and for attending, and thank you everyone who spoke and gave all your brilliant advice. So yeah, I'll send out all this information to you as well, so you'll see that coming probably tomorrow. You'll get all this sent out. So thank you everyone.